Hey, what's the good word, friends? It's Totter here, and what better way to throw myself back into the YouTube trenches than to talk about my favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy VII. This was the first RPG I ever played, and reluctantly at that. I used to think these types of games looked boring and time-consuming, so I never even bothered playing one. And it took my cousin months to finally talk me into playing it. Little did I know that this game is going to change my perception so drastically, in fact, that JRPGs became my preferred genre in video gaming. So anytime I pick up something new, I always look back at the first game that started all this for me. Final Fantasy VII is one of those games that no matter how many times I play through it, it's still just as fun and exciting as I remembered it. And usually once a year I get the urge to pick it up and start it all over again. Well, that time of year has arrived, so get ready, Cloud. It's time to go kick the crap out of Shinra and Sephiroth once again. However, this time I decided to make a list of what moments made this game so great for me, ranging from main plot points to hilarious situations the characters find themselves in, to parts that I share a personal connection with and don't necessarily hold any significance to anyone else. I'm assuming if you're here, you've probably played this game, but I'll say it anyway.
Massive spoilers ahead.
But anyway, here are my top 10 favorite moments of Final Fantasy VII. Number 10. So at the beginning of the game, you take control of protagonist Cloud Strife to help eco-terrorist rebel group Avalanche in the fight against evil electric power company Shinra. Their plan is to blow up Shinra's energy-producing reactors because they're sucking the planet dry of the life stream. Avalanche manages to blow up a few reactors, but Cloud is separated from his group in the process. After he meets Eris, a flower girl from the slums, they set out to reunite with Cloud's buddies, one of them being a close childhood friend named Tifa Lockhart. After spotting her on a chocobo carriage headed toward the Sector 6 wall market, Cloud soon comes to the realization that in order to reunite with Tifa, he will need to infiltrate the mansion of slumlord playboy and Shinra cohort, Don Corneo. The Don is a sick bastard of a man whose only interests are women and power and will use any means necessary to keep both. And outside of his henchmen, the only people allowed in his mansion are women. So Eris, tell us, what's the one way Cloud will be able to get in? Oh, gee Eris, that's a great idea! Seeing no way around it, Cloud agrees to dress up as a girl to save his friend. What follows is a string of strange and hilarious side quests to help Cloud obtain various feminine items, including a trip to the famous brothel, Honeybee Inn. Gee, can't wait to see what that looks like in the remake. Eris's plan succeeds and you rescue Tifa, confront Don Corneo, and extract Shinra's secrets from him by threatening to... Oh dear God. I gotta admit, in a rather dark game, these types of comedic scenes were a welcome breath of fresh air. Number 9. So as I mentioned before, if you're here, chances are you've already played this game. But just in case you haven't, spoiler warning for the upcoming Eris dies at the end of Disc 1. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's been over 20 years. Come on. Having said that, the final adventure she goes on with the main party is through the Temple of the Ancients, and in it, you fight a boss named Red Dragon. Not too tough of a battle, but at the end of it, it drops the Bahamut summon materia. Throughout Final Fantasy lore, Bahamut is one of the most popular and most sought-after summons in the game, revered for its great power and looking dope as f***. Although Bahamut isn't the most powerful summon in Final Fantasy VII, it is the most powerful summon you can obtain to this point in the game. Between this moment and Eris's death, there's only one battle that Eris, one of the best magic users in the game, can use this summon, and that's the fight against Demon's Gate. Why is this significant? In no relevant way, really. This pick is purely personal. You see, I'm a big fan of Eris and her role in the story, as well as of Bahamut itself. Knowing that it's the one and only time this dynamic duo can pair up became a significant moment in this game for me. Number 8. My God, man, can this game get depressing? And for many, many, many reasons. No! Not yet. You will have your time, just wait. But what it is time for is a look into Barrett's backstory. Barrett Wallace, before he formed Avalanche, lived in a coal mining town named Corel, and was in the process of trying to convince his close friend Dine that Shinra Mako reactors were the way of the future. Corel still produced energy through coal, and Dine had a hard time leaving behind all the hard work their ancestors did. Dine eventually agrees, the reactor is built, an explosion occurs at the reactor, and Shinra blames Corel. So what's Shinra's reaction? Burning the whole town to the ground, that's what. Only a little extreme, don't you think? The majority of Corel's population is wiped out, and Barrett and Dine both lose an arm trying to escape, the latter falling into a big gorge, never to be seen again. Now in present day, Barrett and company eventually find themselves in Corel prison, which to the surprise of Barrett is run by his presumed dead friend Dine. Probably better off he had died, really. Because this dude is truly messed up now. All he wants to do is kill and destroy. And after Barrett unwillingly fights his long-lost friend, Dine soon comes to the realization that there's nothing left for him in this world. Even after Barrett tells him that his daughter Marlene is still alive, Dine not only mentions that she is too young to remember him, but that his hands are too stained to ever hold her again. Dude. Dine tosses his last remaining link to the world he once knew over to his old friend, walks over to a nearby cliff, and casually falls off, thus ending one of the saddest moments of this game. Note that I said one of them. We've still got a ways to go here. NumberSeven. Alright, it's time to liven things up a little bit here, at least for the time being. So throughout Disc 1, Cloud becomes part of a slowly building love triangle as the main point of interest between Aeris and Tifa, which I don't even know if you can call it a triangle really, because only one person was expressing their feelings, but that's a debate for another day. And throughout your interactions with the various characters, you're sometimes presented with different dialogue options that you can respond with. Now to first-time players, I'm sure it became pretty obvious that with each choice made, it was going to favor one girl over the other, all heading towards some sort of resolution. Later on, we find out that that resolution is the dating scene during your second trip to the Gold Saucer. Now there are actually 4 different characters you can wind up with on this date. However, 2 of them would be impossible to get without the help of a guide. And yes, you can even have a bros night out with Barrett. But the reason I made this entry is the dating scene with Aeris. Yes, Aeris was my heartthrob of choice, and just imagine how shitty it felt to become invested in a character, level them up, become emotionally attached to them and their story, just to have them ripped away from you in an instant. More on that later! But the dating scene shows Aeris starting to fully open to Cloud in the hopes that he would reciprocate. She sees a lot of her first boyfriend in him personality-wise, but she feels there's much more to him than that. If you're like me, you waited for that moment, and were so happy that it finally arrived that your heart swelled for the 2 characters you hoped would wind up together. NumberSix. Haha! Barrett, what the hell are you wearing? Alright, let me explain. So at this particular point in the game, Shinra and Avalanche aren't going directly after each other anymore, as both are now after the main antagonist, Sephiroth. It is discovered that he's headed towards Costa del Sol, which is across the ocean, so Cloud and company decide to sneak aboard a cargo ship, which is boarded by the highest-ranking Shinra members, including President Rufus himself. Now as you find out, Barrett's personality matches his bulky physique to a T, and while everyone chooses more concealing clothing options, Barrett goes with this. Barrett, why? You look ridiculous. Or according to Cloud, a bear wearing a marshmallow. And what makes it even funnier is we see him visibly getting angrier as he looks on at the Shinra brass, but it's like, I'm sorry Barrett, but it's hard to take you seriously when you look like a member of the Village People. Whenever the remake comes out, I hope there are costume options for your characters, like there are in the Tales of series, because I'd have Barrett in that ridiculous looking sailor outfit the whole game. NumberFive. After spending a good chunk of time running around in Midgar, you find yourself on the outskirts looking at the big, wide open world around you. With the party sights now set squarely on Sephiroth, it's time to march forward. But not before stopping by neighboring town Calm, so Cloud can explain to everyone just what the hell is going on here. So cozied up at the Calm Inn, Cloud begins to tell the story of the day that he and Sephiroth visited Cloud's hometown, Nibelheim, and what drove Sephiroth to become the villain he is today. So throughout the game, Cloud tells other party members that he used to be part of an elite group of Shinra mercenaries named Soldier, and was first class at that. However, he also explains that a lot of what he remembers is pretty foggy. Cloud does his best to explain, telling about everyone he visited, about witnessing Sephiroth's unbelievable power, and the events that led to Sephiroth learning about his past. But much later on, we find out that this is all bullshit. Or that's what we're led to believe. You see, later in the game, Sephiroth begins to show the exact details about that day in Nibelheim, and how Cloud wasn't a part of it in the way that he remembers. Already having doubts about himself and his past, Cloud believes him. His mentality shattered, Cloud is no more lost about who he thinks he is than he is in this moment. But that is when his childhood friend Tifa comes to his rescue. After the two get swallowed up by the life stream, Cloud and Tifa find themselves inside Cloud's mind, where they attempt to sift through his memories to try and piece this whole thing together. Moment by moment, memory by memory, Tifa guides Cloud through to show him that he was actually in Nibelheim. He might have not been the first-class soldier he sought out to be, but he was there. His memories were real. Coming to Tifa's rescue and upholding a promise was real. Confronting Sephiroth and living was real. So with this past sorted out, Cloud and Tifa re-emerge into the real world, and for the first time in this game, Cloud is, well, Cloud. He's not living through someone else's memory anymore. And now that his past has some closure, he can set his sights on finishing off Sephiroth once and for all. It was Cloud's moment of revival after going through so much turmoil, and not only did it lift his spirits, it lifted my spirits as a player, which is why it was so memorable for me. Number 4. So, we covered Cloud's lowest point in the game. Now let's talk about everyone else's in one fell swoop. So in this world, Lifestream gathers on the planet's wounds to help it heal. We learned before the end of Disc 1 that Sephiroth's plan is to summon the ultimate black magic meteor, to create a hole in the planet so big that an enormous amount of Lifestream would have to gather. Sephiroth would then merge with it, becoming a god. So to quickly summarize what happens in this rather confusing story, Cloud's mind is manipulated by the real Sephiroth, who is in fact locked away in the northern crater, who then forces Cloud to bring the black materia to him. With it, Sephiroth summons Meteor, ensuring the end of all life as we know it. Everyone except Cloud escapes, and the next scene brings us to the inside of a hospital-like room, where we find out Shinra is going to execute Avalanche live on television to give the masses someone to blame for this whole mess. To make matters worse, the summoning of Meteor forced the planet to release 4 dormant protectors called weapons. Their job is to eliminate any perceived threat to the planet, and one of them is making a beeline for Junon where the executions are taking place. So yeah, things are looking pretty bleak. Tifa is first up, and by a stroke of plot-driven luck, a guard drops a key, allowing her to unchain herself and escape through a hole created by Sapphire Weapon. Okay, so just how in the hell is she climbing down the building like that? Tifa soon reaches a dead end, and guess who's there to greet her? The woman who carried out her execution. And Tifa winning a slapping war is super satisfying, but come on Tifa, you know some of the deadliest martial arts in all of Gaia, roundhouse kicker in the face. Even after this though, Tifa is still trapped. But then, the rest of the crew shows up in their freshly hijacked airship, and they escape. So remember that feeling you had when you left Midgar for the first time? Where things felt so straightforward and the game dictated everywhere you went? Then all of a sudden you were outside and the whole world was yours to explore. Well, the moment you get the airship is that feeling times a million. Going all the way back to the moment where up to when you get the airship, everything in between felt like you were back to the confines of the plot and couldn't really go anywhere except where the story led you. Then you experience the game at its bleakest moment, then all of a sudden you escape with an airship and can travel to your heart's content. So many side quests you can now complete with the airship. Well, that's great, but don't you think we should deal with the giant meteor that's hurtling towards Guy? No! It's time to go breed chocobos! Knights of the Round, you will be mine! Number 3. God damn it. Yeah, it's that time. It's that time, isn't it? Alright, fine. So after completing the Temple of the Ancients, Cloud obtains the Black Materia. But through mind control, Sephiroth makes Cloud hand it over. Sephi flies off and Cloud goes berserk, eventually being knocked unconscious. Cloud then finds himself in a dream, and Aeris appears. She tells Cloud that she's going to deal with Sephiroth herself and runs deep into the forest. Unfortunately, Sephiroth finds out. Cloud awakens and is told that they need to find Aeris quick. Using that vivid dream as a guideline to where she might have gone, everyone heads towards the Forgotten City, where they find Aeris deep in prayer. Sephiroth, being wise to Aeris' attempt at interference, tries to make Cloud kill her, but he's jolted back to consciousness in the nick of time. But in one of the most memorable cinematics in gaming history, Aeris and Cloud lock eyes as Sephiroth descends from the sky and drives his long sword straight through Aeris, killing her instantly. I played this game for the first time 16 years ago, and this still shakes me. There's really nothing else I can say about this scene that hasn't already been said by millions of people before me. Aeris' death at the end of Disc 1 was sudden and jarring, and it sucked to go through. For some, it's as simple as, oh, I invested all this time leveling her up and now she's gone. And for others, they simply just didn't care. But for me, this was so big, mostly due to the fact that I was invested in the budding relationship between Aeris and Cloud. The moment they shared after escaping the church they met at, the time she got Cloud to cross-dress to enter Corneo's mansion, to cashing in on a date for being her bodyguard. This was the only flicker of light in a very dark game, and it kept things feeling not so heavy. Something to balance out all the death, destruction, and politics that were going on with the main story. I was also one to include her in the party every chance I got, so you can bet I spent a lot of time leveling her up, earning limit breaks, and abusing her super high magic stat. And now she's just gone. It was one of those moments that consumed my mind for the next week or so, where it puts you in a bit of a daze because you're not quite sure what to think. Only a few individual moments in gaming have ever had that type of impact on me. But Aeris' death was first for me, and because of that, I don't think there's any moment in any game that would ever bring about those types of feelings in the way that this did. Number 2. Yeah, damn it, we're still here. But there's one event that follows right after that just intensifies how awful this was. So if you're like me, you're already in a state of mind-numbing paralysis from what just happened. Clearly in no shape to deal with a boss fight, right? Well, too bad! Because after Sephiroth does his dirty work and flies away, he leaves behind a fragment of Jenova, which shapeshifts into Jenova Life. So during the previous cinematic, you get to listen to Aeris' theme for the duration, a super emotional piece of music and arguably one of the best in the game. Normally anytime you fight a form of Jenova, Jenova's theme plays. Not here. When the fight with Jenova Life triggers, Aeris' theme is still going, as if it couldn't get any more depressing than that. Jenova Life is tough, and if you go into this fight unprepared, you are going to have a bad time. But ladies and gentlemen, I have a theory. So, on your way to the Forgotten City, there's an easy-to-spot treasure chest to the northwest. Now, if you're like me or any other gamer on the planet, when you see a treasure chest, you want to see if there's a way to get it. All you have to do here is go under a giant bridge right in front of you, and inside the treasure chest is an accessory called the Water Ring, which absorbs any and all water-based attacks. And again, if you're like me or any other gamer on the planet, When you get a brand spanking new anything, standard procedure dictate you equip that shit to someone. And if you do, you cannot lose this fight because all of Jenova Life's attacks are water-based. So my theory is that Squaresoft did this on purpose, because after this fight, there's one more cutscene showing the party paying their final respects to Eris right before Cloud lays her to rest. Square knew that all these scenes as a whole was the penultimate moment of their game, and it needed to be seen for the first time through and through, ensuring maximum and lasting impact. It's what happened with me, and looking back, had I carelessly passed by the treasure chest and lost a Jenova Life, it would have felt kind of awkward playing any part of this scene over again before it ended, kind of like rewinding during the climax of a movie. But thankfully that didn't happen, and it made this entire scene that much more memorable. Number 1. Alright everyone, before I started making this video, I made a deal with myself. If I went through with this, I was going to use a reasonable blend of nostalgia and hindsight when coming up with my picks. Some parts were honestly hard to ignore because they stuck with me for so long, but some other parts kind of got overlooked because my first time through, I didn't really analyze the game with a fine-tooth comb. But after several years and several playthroughs, I can safely say that my favorite moment began with the push of one button. My number 1 moment of Final Fantasy VII is the collapse of the Sector 7 plate. So remember our good buddy Don Corneo? Well, he had some information that Tifa squeezed out of him, and it wasn't good news. You see, Midgar is divided into 8 sectors, and each contains essentially a higher class and a lower class, the two being divided by a gigantic section-off circular plate, or as Barrett likes to refer to it as, a giant pizza. And those 8 section plates are held up by massive support structures. Shinra, in a desperate attempt to eliminate Avalanche once and for all, decided they would destroy the Sector 7 pillar, thus collapsing the plate and killing everyone underneath, including Avalanche. Corneo tells all to avoid losing his dick, but then dumps the party off through a trapdoor. Cloud, Eris, and Tifa quickly make their way through the sewers and arrive at the pillar, and the first thing you see is one of Avalanche's members falling to their near death. Shit is serious. Cloud and Tifa ascend the stairs of the pillar, seeing the rest of their mortally wounded teammates on the way up. But they march on in the hopes to stop all this from happening. You reach the top to meet with Barrett, who has single-handedly kept Shinra from reaching the self-destruct mechanism, but a Shinra Turk by the name of Reno manages to make his way through and activate the device, ensuring the deaths of thousands and thousands of people. Everyone tries desperately to deactivate it, but it's no use. And at this point, since there's no time left, the party has to save themselves. Barrett finds a giant cable that everyone latches onto and swings to safety, leaving the plate to fall and crush everyone beneath, including half of Avalanche. This entire cinematic is chilling to the bone. Camera angles shown underneath the descending plate, people running for the last seconds of their lives, this newscaster reacting to the plate before the broadcast goes off air, leading to an aerial shot of the plate coming to rest on the ground beneath as President Shinra looks on, observing what he commanded be done. Wow. I have to say, this game does an amazing job at motivating not just the characters, but the player to destroy the evils that have been established. Sephiroth killing Eris made me want to kill him in return, but looking back, Shinra killing all of those people made me want to end them more than anything. Alright everyone, thanks for coming on this rather long journey with me, as I got to gush about my favorite game ever. I knew it would take me forever to do this, but I'm glad I did it. And who knows, if I stay motivated, I might have more Final Fantasy videos come out, or maybe some other games. Anyways, if you liked what you saw, go ahead and drop me a sub and a like. I also have a lot of Pokemon content on here from the past few years, so if you're interested in that, then go ahead and check it out. Thanks again for watching. This is Totter, and I'll see you later.